Welcome to Making Sense of the Madness. We got a great show lined up for you today. We've got documentary filmmaker James Patrick, CBDC, The End of Money. We're going to be talking about the tokenization of anything, the digitization of all currency, and really the origins of Bitcoin and beyond. It's going to be a banger of an episode. You're not going to want to miss it. Buckle up and get ready to make sense of the madness.
The United States Federal Reserve is considering the creation of a digital dollar.
The important thing to understand about CBDC is that it's not a currency. It's a control system.
This is the elimination of the underground economy.
If we lose cash, our money is getting locked into the banking system.
The decision will definitely be made to launch the CBDC and to make it a reality.
CBDCs is the next step closer to a social credit score.
A digital ID system could be operating between governments and the private sector as soon as next year.
Und aus diesem Grund wird die Kommission demnächst eine sichere europäische digitale Identität vorschlagen.
In order to introduce CBDCs, you need digital IDs, so there is a direct connection there to these COVID policies.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau invoking emergency powers against the truckers who are protesting vaccine mandates. Banks can now freeze their personal accounts.
We were never charged. There was never a warrant for our arrest.
You're dead in the water at this point. You're unable to put fuel in your car, food in your mouth.
What you're seeing is the banks in this country have been deputized into law enforcement.
We're lucky that at this point, we still have cash that we can rely on.
What they did in Nigeria was they made them the test case for the CBDCs, which is a complete disaster. It turned into burning banks and riots.
We all are citizens. We only came to at least plead with the bank. Police came out of the central bank, started shooting. About 3 persons died today.
Do we want to live in such a society where a small group of central planners have this extraordinary power over everyone's lives?
Tyranny, starvation, impoverishment, that could be the result.
We have to stop it.
And we are back. We are joined by James Patrick. Really great trailer. I've known people like Catherine Austin Fitts now for almost what seems like 2 decades, at least close to it. I think it's 18 years. She's currently a member of the Independent Media Alliance. We do panels together all the time. This is a subject that really I've been talking about even before the blockchain, but, amongst other people that I've known since the beginning of Bitcoin, Max Kaiser would be one of them, etc. But what really started to concern me when we're talking about the digitization of currency, obviously the Federal Reserve, the printing of money, but then when you had the SDR, the special drawing rights system, all the way back in the International Monetary Fund days. And then this is right at the same time things like PayPal are taking off. It's not just credit cards. Really, digital money is having its heyday. That's when I became concerned, because all of a sudden, the International Monetary Fund was just giving away money that didn't even have to be printed at this point. They would just write the zeros and ones in. And eventually, now we have all sorts of meme coins. We have all sorts of digital relationships that are really only on the blockchain. So before we get going, how did you get into this arena, and why did you decide to make this film?
Well, I think I've been studying from Washington, D.C., and I was really always researching who's behind everything. And obviously the politicians are just kind of like gay actors most of the time, to make a little joke of it. But there's really, I kind of ascertained that these international banking interests are really running the government. It's very high level financial people. And really the people behind the central banks are the ones running the government and dealing with government debts, these kind of Rothschild, Rockefeller level people. And so I got deep into Austrian economics for more than 10 years. And I've done a master's in that in Spain, and now they're doing a PhD on that. And So then when this whole COVID thing broke loose, I realized I had to do something about it and had this background in filmmaking, so decided to do Planet Lockdown. And then, after that was done, it was like with the vaccine passports that were going on, a lot of the edicts given by governments around COVID sort of looked like they were trial testing and prototyping a sort of future CBDC world where they could shut off people's ability to buy and sell out in certain areas. Like in many countries, they said, if the cases hit 100 per 100,000 population, you can't go more than 15 kilometers from your area. Like I visited Hamburg in November 2020, and they said, 15 kilometers from your area, you can't go if the cases get above 100 per 100,000. I know Australia, Ireland, they had things saying 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers from your home. They had no way of enforcing this. Your payment cards would still work, cash would still be accepted. But in a world of CBDCs, they could say, look, your money just doesn't, pandemic, your money doesn't work outside your home area. Now this is what they're talking about now, these 15-minute cities. So in a lot of these CBDC trial prototypes, they're talking about restricting where you can buy and sell. That your money will go bad after 6 months. It'll just vanish. So this is sort of naturally. This was sort of the issue, the most pressing issue, I think that we have to face here is the guys that until this date have really controlled indirectly our money system. They've created these central banks. Now we're on the sort of crossroads of another financial reform. They're trying to basically reform our money system again in a way that would be incredibly restrictive over the people. So this film is really sort of introducing the big ideas to people. What are central bank digital currencies? What is the context people should view this? What are stable coins? What are what we know, this Tether story? What's the origins of Bitcoin? What's the relationship of that to CBDCs? And this broader issue of the Internet of Things, Internet of Bodies, digital IDs, which are prerequisite of Bitcoin. I have prerequisite to make CBDCs work. There's a section on China. I finished it up with sort of I interviewed 2 of the top trucker Freedom Convoy people in Canada to show people an example of what can happen when these things are in place, and really connect also this broader issue of the tokenization of all people and assets worldwide into sort of a one world ledger, which I show a lot of clips of Larry Fink from BlackRock sort of salivating over this, saying, we have a one world ledger with everything on one ledger, which is really a world government.
Well, all right, listen, you've said a lot, right? But the ledger part, I have to just jump in. I don't know if you remember it, but there was an internal Google video that leaked out probably a decade plus ago. It's called the Selfish Ledger. And really, if you've never seen it or heard of it, I can't encourage you to check it out enough, but it really goes through how everything is going to be tracked, traced, and databased, and already is at some point. Now, this doesn't exactly incorporate blockchain technology, and I'm trying to think whether or not it actually was before Bitcoin came out. It's right around that era, somewhere in that 2008 to maybe 2012. I think it was still well before they took down the "Don't Be Evil" sign underneath. But when you talk about this Internet of Things, we've already been encompassed by it the last really decade plus. And I would say starting in the beginning of 2000, when more and more people had a home computer, obviously a decade and a half ago when the magic box came into play, that's when the Internet of Things accelerated on a level that I don't think most people grasp. You just mentioned the Internet of Bodies. A lot of people still have trouble grasping the idea that you could be biologically surveilled through current technology, and that would be the next thing. But we already have medications, for instance. You talk about compliance and whether they can shut things off, etc. Right now, things have MySite technology in them. So I highlight the fact, and they're always saying, oh, well, if somebody with dementia doesn't take their heart medication, we want to make sure that they take it and the sensor goes off. This isn't Abilify. The drug when your SSRIs aren't working for depression. So this is the drug on top of the drug when your drugs don't work. And it's got a Bluetooth device in it that lets the doctor know whether or not you've actually taken it and it's dissolved for the day, etc. The Internet of Bodies goes even well beyond that, where you could censor somebody's heart rate, their breathing patterns, their exercise level, their diets, you name it. And that really is the next thing that I think is under the radar. And one of the things that this blockchain technology can really enable. For instance, when we talk about biometrics, Sam Altman has his WorldCoin. And WorldCoin's now been around for well over a year. You can go down to New York City right now, go under the World Trade Center, have your biometrics scanned right there, get your WorldCoin. And then the Harvester of Souls also gets WorldCoin. Now, he is being sued in certain places, but that's another example of the blockchain incorporated with your biometrics, with your humanity itself. And I'd just like you to kind of touch upon where you think that is headed.
Yeah, as you're saying, I mean, there's a lot there. There's a lot of, these are big topics, but basically these sort of creepy oligarch type people want to move us to a totally surveilled society where every transaction you do, everywhere you go, every person you associate with is sort of entered, everything you own, how much you weigh, what you ate, what you put in your fridge, every damn thing in your life is entered into some massive global database that some creepy AI brain will process and they can just program the thing to restrict people like sheep. So it's really, really sick what is going on. This stuff is sort of coming in quickly from all sides, and I think we really need to be aware of it. So my film really just scratches the surface to put this stuff into context. Like, I don't really get into the Internet of Bodies other than play a few promo videos of the technology explaining it generally. But in general, just on the basic level to kind of bring people into it would be your digital ID, your to uniquely identify you with your biometrics, with a photograph of you. Really, most of the stuff is using your photograph, your face, your gait. When you come into an international airport, they are already processing the fact that you came there, you flew there. It's you who actually is getting off that plane. You're caught on a bunch of cameras. So before you even get to the passport office, I have friends who work in that, and they told me, yeah, when I come to Dulles Airport, I'm already identified 15 times on cameras before I even get to the passport office, passport kiosk or whatever, So it's like, I think this stuff has already been done, to some degree. I opt out where I can, but it's sort of like, anyway, the next step is really to kind of integrate this stuff into a fully integrated. But the Internet of Bodies, like what Harari's talking about, is really getting sensors inside the body to monitor all of your biological functions. And if you look up things like nano networks, there's hundreds of scientific papers on this stuff talking about nanobots put into the body either surreptitiously or voluntarily that then will monitor the inside of the body and automatically set up these nano networks. I don't get into all that.
Well, all I'm saying is, look, you're not wrong. Like, first of all, we are in the bio-nano era, have been for about 5 years, according to white papers of our government's own documents. If you listen to people like Ray Kurzweil, who have a cushy job at Google and have for a very long time, and remember, Google has an immortality division. It's called Calico. They've had it for a very, very long time. A lot of people don't know that. They don't know their origin story of the initial funding. Not only the InQtel stuff, but really the funding of the initial algorithm came from DARPA and NASA in the National Library project or directive. It's all out there. Yeah. I mean, anybody can look this stuff up. And because I like to be correct, and I get things wrong every once in a while, Google Selfish Ledger, actually 2016, anybody can go check it out. We are going to take a quick break. The movie is CBDC, The End of Money, cbdctheendofmoney.com. You can go there, or you can go to bigpicture.watch to go check it out. We're going to take that break. We're going to come back. I kind of want to take some steps back away from the Internet of Bodies and get into the origin of blockchain technology, because I'm sorry, I don't believe in imagination land stories of Satoshi Nakamoto and all this other garbage. I really do believe that when you look at this stuff, again, it's an extension of military grade technology. But I want to get his take and where they go in the film, more making sense of the madness after this.
Everything you're showing us, Steve, I'm looking at it going, I want one of those. I want one of those. And I think you guys are too. So don't forget to go to the Patriot TV store and you can see all of Steve's Made in America shirts and just everything. Shirts, hats, socks, sunglasses, you name it, workout gear, you've got everything.
So we're going to bring some of our other people back again to show you some of the other items.
Okay.
And we keep changing so you get a good idea of what we carry.
Yeah, I mean,
See a lot of,
exactly. Look at the variety and look at the choices you have. Today's guest again was Steve Stern of the Flag Shirt Company. And again, they've been in business over 70 years. High quality products, fast delivery, and amazing customer service. So for any reason something doesn't fit, you can send it right back. And again, I'm going to say it one more time, the Patriot TV store. You've got to go to Patriot TV store and get your items now.
What do a neurosurgeon, a country artist, and a television and radio host have in common? They all saw the writing on the wall. Big banks sharing their financial information with big government. Join them as owners in Old Glory Bank, the pro-America online bank that protects your privacy, security, and liberty. Invest today at own.oldglorybank.com.
And we are back. We are with James Patrick. So let's get into it, because, I was around in the days of Bitcoin being less than $1, long before the days of a Coinbase wallet, etc. And I always said this about it. I go, look, number one, it's digital. That means in some ways it can be gamed. I would argue it's probably been gamed more the way insider trading and stock markets have been gamed with whales than anything else. And especially now that, you've got BlackRock buying into it. There are all sorts of subsidies or different types of blockchain out there, especially Ethereum. And then you have ERC tokens. You have all sorts of exchanges. It's a totally different ballgame when it first began. But I always said this. They want to shut it off, they'll shut it off. Or they'll just take it from you. I'll give you a great example. I don't know if you saw this story. It's probably about 6 to 8 months old. But in Germany, they arrested 2 guys that were running like a pirate website where people didn't even just pay in Bitcoin. They were taking the money from the pirate website and investing in Bitcoin. They got them in a room, and they took $2 billion in Bitcoin from them. And that, folks, is well before it was on 6 figures. I think it was in the somewhere between maybe $50,000 and $70,000 at that point. They just took it. And people go, well, they needed their keys. Yeah, they got them in that room, and they broke their first finger. And then they broke their second finger, and then they broke their third finger, and finally they said, we're going to chop your hand off. I'm making this up, but think about it, folks. Yeah. Both of them gave over their keys, right? And that's the first thing where you can say, all right, well, I guess you could have gone to your deathbed, but how are you going to spend your Bitcoin and nobody else is going to? I mean, that's ridiculous. Of course you're going to give it up, like 99.9% of the time. But now, when you centralize it, and really, the one thing is, if you're not, the idea of Bitcoin was this decentralized motion against the banks where you and I could transact directly, no fees, etc. Mm-hmm. That's not what it's become. People call it digital gold. Yeah. It's regulated, just like I knew it would be. And we'll get into kind of these subsidiaries of CBDCs, because you even have entities like the World Economic Forum discussing XRP, for instance, as their CBDC 4 or 5 years ago. Now all of a sudden XRP is exploding. I'm shocked. So when you look at the origins of this technology, does it feel like an extension of command and control, or does it feel like it really was this like anarchist, like, yeah, decentralized, let's go, super genius, anonymous genius that launched this thing, the Satoshi Nakamoto story? And where are we right now in blockchain technology? Forget about where you think we're going. Where are we now and why?
Yeah, I think the story about Satoshi is a little silly, and it's like a comic book. I mean, is an intern, a couple interns at NSA in like a weekend could figure out who Satoshi is. And the fact that we're saying there's this big anti-system technology that was launched, it's got the fingerprints of these intelligence services all over it, with the use of SHA-256, and I think it's probable that the central bankers utilized the Western intelligence services to launch Bitcoin as laying the foundational technology to usher in the cashless society. So it is truly a decentralized sort of currency, and that it is a decent technology. I mean, I don't want to poo-poo on it completely. Like it is. It does have its value. I mean, just like every technology can have a good or bad application, it does create digital scarcity, and it is great for tracking things. But the dark applications of the technology are underappreciated, and the sort of benefits are over marketed. So I think that we need to be a little more prudent about this, and appreciate the sort of negative applications blockchain poses for society in terms of human freedom, in terms of tracking and tracing people. Bitcoin is a public ledger. Every transaction you make can be seen in there. There's no privacy. In order to get any substantial amount of money in or out of it, you have to go through the exchanges. They have to comply with all the AML KYC regulations. Just by buying Bitcoin doesn't just like magically snap your fingers like Dorothy, click your heels, and the government's gone. The bankers are gone. Like, we still live in this world with these big problems. It doesn't get around solving these massive problems of the government and these banking cartels messing with us, and so it's just like anyway. And then it also launching this thing like that, they market it as this anti-system thing. I got attracted to it very early on because they were promoting Austrian economics in it. Satoshi was referencing Mises and Rothbard in his papers. So the person or people that wrote it were well read on that subject, but it really
or let me just pose this. I mean, it could have been AI. I mean, I'm not saying that AI started it, but, again, if this is an NSA project, large language models have been for a long time. Like you said, a couple of interns could have done this. This could have literally just been a kind of side project for how do we get into the libertarian movement and get them into digital currencies? Because certainly, again, I've been in this game a really long time. I'm the first guy Alex Jones ever gave a show to, and one of the guys that made Loose Change. I remember how really, before we had the digital currency, the anarchists were out in full force, right? Before the flat out earthers infiltrated our movement and embarrassed us over again. It was always the non-aggression principle. The real true hardcore libertarians really did want to go into some kind of system, not the Ron Paul system of, limited government and even a constitutional republic. They're like, you don't have a right to anything. And everybody's going to behave because we're going to go by this total, away from society thing. Now, all of a sudden, even the moderate libertarians, who had been adamant against digital currencies, Bitcoin was the thing. And now you had evangelicals everywhere. And I don't think that, evangelicals like Max Kaiser are bad people. I think Max Kaiser saw a financial opportunity, right? This is a Wall Street guy. He sees this thing. Hey, this is going to be big. But, I mean, in short time, I would say in less than, about 5-6 years, there started to be the gatherings, Anarchapulco, for instance. It's in the name. Yeah. That's as pro-digital currency and Bitcoin as it gets. Yeah. But in the very beginnings, I think that we should also know that the way Bitcoin was mined was very, very, very decentralized, and still is in some way, but it was accessible. So, in other words, there were people that were just doing the proof of work, and they had some graphics cards, And, sure, there were mining arenas, but anybody could get into it. There was a time, folks, when this started, when Bitcoin was under $1. Okay. So people were doing, way under $1 and doing that. And then even when you see the origins of the offshoots of this technology, before we get into meme coin central, Ethereum is proof of work, right? So some energy inherently had to go in it. So it had that kind of value, at least, right? The value of spending your money to create this through your electric bill or whatever. A lot of that's gone away, especially with the subsets of Ethereum. Bitcoin stayed true, and that's why it's so difficult to mine, because it's on this algorithm that makes it more and more difficult. But now you got people like Musk pumping Dogecoin that make as many as you want. It has absolutely no value. It gets traded around. It's insanity. And Trump just launched his little meme coin too. Can you kind of explain that evolution and why that gets even more dangerous? And that's kind of what these oligarchs and authoritarians want, a system where they can just make this up out of nowhere. They can turn it off whenever they want. They can control the exchanges. They can monitor everything at every moment, etc. And then we'll even get into kind of the smart contracts and how those, through the blockchain, can run an automation society. Forget about just the Internet of Bodies, folks. They want this as our power infrastructure.
Well, I think the main selling argument for Bitcoin is saying, well, you can get out of the clutches of these bankers by buying Bitcoin. And I'd like to sort of push back on that and say, well, that is true, but you are running into the use of these technologies. You're running into using offline, like non-real, ethereal, digital world technologies, thinking that you're escaping tyranny, and then they sell us on this decentralized thing. I don't think that just you can have decentralized tyranny. You can have a centralized program, or where the government issues the money, or you can have decentralized databases and protocols that can control you all the same. So I'm not sure that, like, we're buying Bitcoin that you're escaping their controls. You are able to own the money where you control the wallet, but you're not really escaping this broader digital world that they're trying to bring us into. Everyone's become a zombie on these stupid phones. People are becoming dumber by the minute. They're doing everything online. They're getting less socialized. Now they want to push all the money into this sort of thing. They've gotten us used to using the cards to pay for everything. Cash is dwindling. What the hell is moving into all this digital money stuff and normalizing this, helping us in our society and our world? So, while I agree with some of the basic tenets of Bitcoin, I'd like to ask people to step back and look at it from a 50,000 feet perspective and say, this is clearly going along the trajectory of bringing in the cashless society, controlling people. And although Bitcoin is a decentralized, kind of autonomous mind, sort of peer-to-peer network, it doesn't mean it won't be just a fixture of a tyrannical system, and that we're being gulled into using this technology by the lure of profits. This is an old military strategies. Or an old strategy to get control of people. You lure them in through the desire of making money, getting profits, and then they can just pull the rug or regulate it in a certain way, or maybe they can't control your wallets, but they could plunge the value very low. They could control the miners. They could actually print more of these things if they get control of enough of the mining nodes. So it's just the euphoria around it is just retarded. And all my Bitcoin friends are just like, oh, it's great. I like CBDCs now because it's going to drive up my Bitcoin. It's just like, guys, wake the fuck up. This is not good. Mm-hmm. You're gonna get hemmed in like a pig if you don't watch out. So.
And that's why cash, as bad as it seems sometimes, right? We've all seen fiat currencies in other countries with the wheelbarrows. We've all heard, like with the basic education, about the Weimar Republic. I'm sure, when you were giving your background, you came across The Creature from Jekyll Island and G. Edward Griffin's work, and really, this system of taking us off a standard where you had to back it with something. And at the time, it was precious metals. And I would argue that's a good thing because that's a resource that can be utilized and does maintain some sort of value. So a fiat currency is bad enough. This is a fiat currency on steroids with a command and control aspect that I don't think most people can grasp. And one of the things that you didn't discuss via the COVID 1984 nightmare was shutting people out via their vaccine passport in this country, in places all around. Private businesses were still doing that, even in states as great as Florida or, North Dakota. People don't understand that, and even if I moved to Iowa from New York during that time period. If I'm in FedEx in Iowa, and most people, there's no mask rule, so they left you alone. FedEx, they'd come up to you. Do you have your mask? Here, let me give you a mask. I don't want your mask. And again, that's kind of that pressure we saw. Now it's not just going to be pressure. It's going to be get out or you can't use it, period. And you might... people got around that with a fake vaccine card. I know plenty of people that did that to go to concerts all around the country, right? You won't be able to do that when that CBDC is literally hooked to your biometrics and they scan your face and it's not you, or they take your thumbprint or it's not you, or they take a little swabby like they did during the COVID 1984 nightmare and it's not you. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back. We're really going to talk about that authoritarian aspect of this technology and the examples that they utilize in this film. Again, the trucker convoy is a part of this to really illustrate what already has been done and where it can go. So we're going to take a break. We're going to come back. More Making Sense of the Madness after this.
I couldn't give anything a higher endorsement.
I would be remiss had I not include Cardio Miracle on my very short list of secrets.
It's the real deal. It's a real product. It's not another supplement.
I'm operating about 6 to 8 hours, and I've noticed that being on this Cardio Miracle has made a huge difference.
Since I started taking Cardio Miracle about 8 months into it, the benefits have been fantastic.
If I get hungry, then I just have a Cardio Miracle.
Not only is it safe, but it's necessary to take Cardio Miracle to stay well.
This let me sleep, it's feeling like more energy, more get up and go, and it's all because of what this company does.
For me as a doctor, Cardio Miracle is a staple.
Cardio Miracle to me is hope in a glass.
To try Cardio Miracle for yourself and get a special fan discount, go to the host page right now and click the link for Cardio Miracle.
And we are back. So let's talk about that aspect. People, again, cannot grasp, especially like in this country, yes, there were lockdowns, but you could leave. You could hit the road, right? Like you said, in other westernized countries, that was not the case. Now, whether or not it was enforced, we did see horror stories online. But they debanked people. In Canada, our neighbors to the north, they did that on a large scale. In Israel, they were very strict with the vaccine passports. They would not allow you to go grocery shopping without them. And on top of that, they already have, Netanyahu bragged about it, said they already had a genetic database of 90+% of the populace. Or they had their medical records, and the next thing was to get a genetic database for them and incorporate that. That's extremely scary stuff. He's not the only person saying that. That is the goal.
Yeah. Sorry, what's your question about where this
Well, I'd like you to kind of talk about what already has happened and where they want to push it. Because I know that you feature the trucker convoy, et cetera. But what are the other features where they're able to utilize really not even a CBDC, but just shutting you out of the economy or making things illegal that they'd like to accelerate through this technology?
Yeah, well, I think the CBDCs are something to worry about, but it's a broader issue here of the use of restricting people, barring them from society, and when we had the COVID situation, it was very eerie to me because it was like they were testing and prototyping these things, how far people would go into adopting these things, going along with these things, and testing and prototyping these sorts of social control systems of pushing people out. And once they have these CBDCs in place, if they get there, they will really be able to turn you off, restrict where you can go, how far you can go. Thailand recently had a CBDC pilot. They were offered people $250 to sign up, get a digital ID with the government, and then they would get $250, but the money would go bad after 6 months, would not be able to be used outside 4 kilometers from their area, and only be able to use on groceries or other approved items. So this is where this is going. I don't think it will. I think that even if they succeed in getting things like this in certain places, that it's going to be a messy, rocky process. They'll probably destroy the economy doing things like that. The solution will really be local monies for cities or states or even companies issuing their own monies. This is something we all need to be prudent of, and it can take the form of a CBDC or like, for example, Trump is saying, oh, we're banning it, but the same thing can be done through private issue stable coins, tokenized deposits. They can control your bank accounts exactly the same way. In that executive order Trump passed banning CBDCs, he gave authorizing language for the stable coin. So it's sort of a bait and switch they're playing with us. They're sort of screwing with us, like, oh, look, great leader is doing everything for us, solving all these problems we just made for you to bitch about. And then they go, they just... So it's like we're getting psychologically toyed with. I mean, remember through the COVID thing, it was like they were just mentally terrorizing everybody and turning things off and on. This is a continual process going on with these right-left elections, back and forth, making the sheep think that they're getting taken care of now, pitting white and black, left and right, Christians, Muslims against each other. And another troubling thing Trump did. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff he's been doing in the last couple of weeks, but one thing he says, oh, we're going to biometrically tag all the migrants, So
and open up Guantanamo Bay. Yeah, and legitimize Gitmo. Again, I'm with you, man. I want to go back to stable coins because I think that's also important because people don't even understand what that is or what's behind it and where it is right now. So, folks, like he said, if you're actually going to get money out of crypto, you need to be on an exchange. You need to have your bank account hooked up to it. Again, that bank account they can shut down, etc.
Identify yourself biometrically a lot of the time.
I mean, I'll say this. Coinbase didn't ask for my thumbprint when I got it, but certainly you needed your license, right? So one of the things that they'll make you do on any basic exchange is you got to take a picture of your front license. I think some of them now ask for your social security number, etc.
Yeah, there's a photo of yourself, like with a signature, like holding your ID like this. I mean, they always ask for that.
Yep, that's the next thing next to it. Sure, that same ID that you scan in. So you do all that to get in this decentralized exchange. But But before you can actually cash out on your Bitcoin, you have to sell it to something that is like USDC, one of these stable coins that you just said, and then exchange it for your currency. If you're in the US, obviously US dollars to get it in there. USDC is Goldman Sachs, okay? So it is the establishment. It's not like the establishment banking institutions haven't worked their way in to ensure that you need them to turn it into the currency you want. Again, it's not just this decentralized exchange. So you kind of talk about what those stable coins are and how that process works?
Yeah, the film reviews it. It says CBDC, theendofmoney.com, but there's basically these things called stable coins. So when we have Bitcoin, then there later emerged Ethereum and all these other crap coins. And then they would, to be able to buy the shit coins, excuse my French, you'd have to basically trade your Bitcoin for the other crypto coins. And they would have these crazy denominations like 0.0006 Bitcoin for one other random coin. And so people came out with these stable coins, which are just pegged to the US dollar. The main one, and still the main one really, is Tether, USDT. And so it's pegged to the US dollar. So it's a lot easier to trade all these other random 2,000 other coins and Ethereum ERC20 tokens for a flat dollar price thing, stable coin. So, but we should look at the background of Tether. And I mentioned this in the film about the fact that these three guys that created Tether, their identities were revealed through the Panama Papers leaks. They set up the exchange called Bitfinex. They also set up this USDT Tether company. And allegedly Tether is backed by one-to-one with dollars in a bank account. They set up these bank accounts in Puerto Rico, kind of funny place to do it. Anyway, clearly they were not backing all these things with dollars. Then they got some flack for it. They're running a multi-$100 billion scam. Basically, everyone knew they wouldn't have these things backed up. They were making them out of nothing, pumping these tethers into Bitfinex, manipulating the price of Bitcoin up and down with that. Then they only got like 2 angry letters from the regulators over it. Even though guys with some $10 million scam will get the regulators totally on them about it and thrown in jail. These guys, they're totally untouched. The regulators just don't seem to care about them, which is a huge red flag. Their intelligence or some high level financial interests being protected by the regulators. And then, so that's just the story of USDT is just enough to show you that there's some big players very interested in this. I think they set up another, if Tether doesn't work out, now they set up another parallel one they can switch to if USDT gets enough flack. But basically now the USDT is the largest holder of treasuries outside of like sovereign countries. I mean, the Trump appointed the head of counterfeits, Gerald Lutnick, as a new high official. He's the counterfeits Gerald head who they're the main custodian of all of Tether's securities. So there's an incestuous relationship here between what is the crypto land and the powers that be here that should make people cautious.
Again, you talked about the fact they'll go after somebody who's running like a $10 million scam. And I'm all for that.
And they should.
Yeah, and they damn right, because I know a lot of people out there that they're not very tech savvy in general. They don't know what they're doing. They see a commercial here. They got it on exchange. They learn a little bit about these alt exchanges, and they buy into something big with real money, and they lose big. And I feel bad for them, and they should at least know what they're getting into. At the same time, there are a lot of projects out there that I think are going to take hold when we get into the smart contracts arena. And kind of that's the next place I want to go to. This promise of blockchain is to have these smart contracts to put things into place to make sure that they work. And for me, when you're talking about infrastructure like our power grid, et cetera, and these systems, they should be nowhere near not only a blockchain system, but the internet ever. Like they should have an intranet. You should have to be on site. If we are talking about like a major city, that's a national security issue, should be locked down. Like if you want something with biometrics, how about the person that really runs that place at the base level, and the hardware cannot be accessed remotely? It seems
Totally
like,
agree.
yeah, but it seems like they want the complete opposite, and they're always talking about cyber attacks. The cyber attacks are coming, and they're gonna devastate the grid. Well, how about we make a grid that can't be devastated by a cyber attack because it's old school analog? Again, I think, like, I have a baseline education. I am a state college dropout, for Christ's sake. And I can figure that out. Yet all of these, Ivy Leaguers out there are all proponents of this technology for that very thing. So can you speak to that?
Yeah, why don't we just put nuclear weapons on a blockchain? This integrating everything and pushing everything online, and so that's one thing. I interviewed Whitney Webb in the film, and she's written a bunch of pieces on the World Economics Forum planning on these cyber pandemics. So that seems to be where this is going. They're using these crises to usher in reforms that would not be accepted otherwise. So continually linking all these things to the internet, integrating them, and then attacking them and taking them down, and then blaming free speech and saying we need more rationales to have digital IDs to identify everyone. One long-standing thing has been to have an ID tag to use the internet, having you biometrically prove who you are to use the internet. I mean, Obama floated that idea 10 years ago or more. So we're just, this is that what you want to talk about, or what?
Well, we've actually got to take one more break. CBDC, theendofmoney.com is the website that you can go check it out. When we come back, you just mentioned Whitney Webb. Whitney's a good friend of mine. She's also a part of the Independent Media Alliance, has done the seminal work on Jeffrey Epstein. Like I said, Catherine Austin Fitts. We've got truckers. We've got other great economists. Please, if you are unfamiliar with this issue, or you have people that are completely unfamiliar with this issue, this is the film that can break through in plain language and let people know the urgent dangers of this system and how it may come into fruition in this new golden age. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about that golden age. Final segment of Making Sense of the Madness after this.
Everything you're showing us, Steve, I'm looking at it going, I want one of those. I want one of those. And I think you guys are too. So don't forget to go to the Patriot TV store, and you can see all of Steve's Made in America shirts and just everything. Shirts, hats, socks, sunglasses, you name it, workout gear, you've got everything.
So we're going to bring some of our other people back again to show you some of the other items.
Okay.
And we keep changing so you get a good idea of what we carry.
Yeah, I mean,
See a lot of,
exactly. Look at the variety and look at the choices you have. Today's guest again was Steve Stern of the Flagship Company. And again, they've been in business over 70 years. High quality products, fast delivery, and amazing customer service. So for any reason something doesn't fit, you can send it right back. And again, I'm going to say it one more time, the Patriot TV store. You've got to go to Patriot TV store and get your items now.
What do a neurosurgeon, a country artist, and a television and radio host have in common? They all saw the writing on the wall. Big banks sharing their financial information with big government. Join them as owners in Old Glory Bank, the pro-America online bank that protects your privacy, security, and liberty. Invest today at own.oldglorybank.com.
And we are back. So let's get into the golden age. We got about 10 minutes left in the broadcast. And look, I don't want to take a hot steaming dump on the Trump administration. There's a lot I like you said. I'm waiting on these RFK, MLK, JFK documents. I just did an Independent Media Alliance panel, and they're all very skeptical, and they should be, on what we're going to get or see. Okay, he pardoned the January 6ers. Hey, anarchists, he let Ross Ulbricht out of prison, gave him a full pardon, okay? I think there are huge other things he could do in that arena. Snowden is one of them. I think pardoning Assange after the fact, promising they'll never go after him again. I mean, if you're signing an executive order keeping the government out of censorship, that's a pretty key thing to do. And really, it was his Justice Department and the previous one and the next one that went after Assange, so his hands are far from clean on that. I like getting out of the WHO. The rhetoric of the CBDC is great. The tariffs are great. I mean, honestly, he gets rid of the IRS, which I don't believe, folks. But if he does, I'll be out in the streets. That's a great thing. I can see, but that could also usher in a big digital transformation. I want those 9/11 documents. They ragged on RFK Jr. in the hearings on some of his statements on 9/11. Well, let's declassify them. Had Rudy Giuliani on the show in October. He said declassify all of them. He doesn't trust the government anymore. He's open to all the conspiracy theories. I'd never thought I'd hear that from the former mayor of New York City, but here we are. So there has been a transition, I would say, in the culture in the idea of questioning authority on multiple levels. COVID-1984 did us a big favor in that regard. But the dangers of this technology are very real. He has surrounded himself with all the known tech bros. I don't trust the Muskernuts one bit. I think he's very much a cut. He's not running all those companies. Yeah, he's running SpaceX, Neuralink, the Boring Company, X. Come on, guys. Like, come on. Like, that's absolutely ridiculous. Zuckerberg's by his side. They're building a huge AI data center right now, the size almost of Lower Manhattan, out in Louisiana. They all want to use nuclear power. Larry Ellison's talking mRNA and Stargate. Where do you think this golden age goes? Because I think that we could get a lot of positives, but obviously all the technologies integrate, especially into these banking systems. Trump launched his own little meme coin just before the inauguration took off. So they see at least the idea of the manipulation of these things. Trump himself, I don't think he gets most of these technologies. From mRNA to blockchain. I mean, when he said, have fun playing with your Bitcoin, and we should make all the Bitcoin in the United States, you kind of know where his grasp of that technology it is. It's not very good. So where are we going with this technology in this new golden age?
I don't think anywhere good. I don't like any of this technology. So, I mean, my personal opinion is that these technologies have basically destroyed civilization. I think they've really destroyed society. The phones have really made people mentally ill. So me personally, I don't think these technologies are really good. The values they create, the conveniences, I mean, they're nice, but what are the social ramifications of this? I mean, okay, we link everything into one Uber base. What benefit does that bring to society? I don't think it brings any. Do you?
I'm a decentralization guy for real. I don't want to see the abolishment of cash and private transactions and barter. I think that's extremely dangerous. These days, when I'm telling people why they really need to look at this issue, there's a recent video out there. It's this traveling guy. I think he's bald and bankrupt or something like that. Look it up, bald and bankrupt in China. And he goes to China, and there are parts of China that are extremely clean. Everything seems convenient. Everything's through the little appy app. No one takes cash. And then all of a sudden, he's in the middle of this area where his phone no worky. And Scanny no worky. Yeah. So he's in the middle of the train station. He has no access to his bank account. He has no way to do anything. And you kind of see the perils of it. And there's another part in this that really stuck with me is after you see all the beauty, he kind of goes outside of the main cities. And he's in this area where it's just like these Chinese women sitting down. He needs something hemmed, right? So they're sewing something for him on like this picnic table in this very like second world looking like ghetto type area, right? But and they know English and they're kind of flirting with him and stuff. But he's not even able to pay them anything. And they've got on this beat up wooden table a QR code for him to scan. And I'm just like, my God, this is how integrated it is in China that even these people, they're not using cash. So I would encourage people to take a look at that. I think the technologies are a double-edged sword. I think that if you actually had a decentralized exchange that people were using peer-to-peer, okay. Again, that's not what we have. Yeah. So it is extremely dangerous. We got about 2 minutes left. I am just going to give you the floor. I'm going to let you talk to my audience about anything we missed today. Let them know where to find the film, how they can support you. And I'd love to maybe get a beat on what your next project might be.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think... I recently lived through the Hurricane Helene in Appalachia, and there cash was the only thing you could use for 2 weeks. And so that really drove the point home that you need to have cash. Otherwise, in a crisis situation, you're really screwed. But I think there's a lot of hopeful things on the horizon here with local monies. A lot of states around the U.S. are introducing gold depository bills. That's something I think people should call their state representatives and ask for. But you can see the film at CBDC, That's CBDC, the end of money, and it's free with an email. And I think one of just to wrap up some of these weird ideologies is people, I mean, there's these guys like Sam Altman or Ray Kurzweil, there's sort of a theme I see where they think they're gods and they think that they can create a sort of better world, or they can play God. I mean, there's an old expression. They say the rabbi had an argument with God and he won. So this whole issue of that they can supplant God and be this. You see that in the New Age beliefs, and this kind of thing that you can play God, they can make this better world. I mean, these people are clearly mentally ill. They don't understand the soul and what the meaning of life is, and think their fart smells like some divine sugar or something.
They are sociopathic, social Darwinists of a predator class, and like you said, they think that they are better than the rest of us. They should rule over us because they do, and ultimately, this is not just a transhumanist agenda. There are those that I think it's transhumanism to me is two different things in their mind. That they'll be able to piggyback off of us and biologically live forever, while they convince the rest of us that we can upload our consciousness while we euthanize ourselves into some metaverse. But that's just my opinion. This has been a really great chat. James Patrick, CBDC, theendofmoney.com. Go check out the film. Folks, you know the drill to me. It is not about left or right. It is always about right and wrong. I absolutely love you guys, and we will see you on the flip side.
What do a neurosurgeon, a country artist, and a television and radio host have in common? They all saw the writing on the wall. Big banks sharing their financial information with big government. Join them as owners in Old Glory Bank, the pro-America online bank that protects your privacy, security, and liberty. Invest today at own.oldglorybank.com.